What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to another episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. Today, I kind of just want to talk about some of the more disappointing players so far to start off the 2026 NBA season. Guys that I really had high expectations for going into the year. And remember, this is just going to be like 10-20% of the season so far for them. So they have a lot of time to make up ground and really kind of hit those expectations that at least I had for them going into the year. I just wanted to talk about these guys in general, maybe what's working, maybe what's not working, where we could see them heading down the line as well. And if there's definitely any other disappointing players that I don't mention about, you can let me know on Twitter, YouTube comments if you're watching there. So the first player I want to talk about is LaMelo Ball of the Charlotte Hornets. And for you guys on YouTube, I might just have like basketball reference up so you can kind of see some of the numbers, at least the counting stats here. And LaMelo Ball's been slightly disappointing to start off the year. Now, there's two reasons why I think LaMelo Ball has been disappointing. And going into the year, LaMelo had his injury concerns, right? He has had terrible ankles so far since he's been drafted, where a lot of you guys will talk, or like we'll talk about how much time like Zion misses and Embiid misses. Well, LaMelo Ball since 2022, which was a long time ago. In 2022, I was in grad school. 1 year I was in grad school, and that was when the Hornets made it to the play-in tournament. Didn't make it out of the play-in tournament, but that was the last time they had above 500 record. And then was actually, I wanted to bring up, that was Borrego, right? Yeah, that was James Borrego. And 2023, Steve Clifford comes into the mix. I think it was 2023. Or did he get let go in 2020? No, it was Steve Clifford. I don't know why. But either way, yeah, James Borrego and the Hornets were good in 2022. LaMelo plays 75 games. Then he goes on to play 36 games in 2023, 22 games in 2024, 47 games in 2025. He's missed a little bit of time this year. Now, it's just a little bit of time, but it's the persistent ankle issues that I kind of worry about. LaMelo is not under this rookie contract anymore. LaMelo's making $37.9 million this year, $40 million next year, $43 million in 2028, and $46 million in 2029. He's got about 4 years, 120 remaining on this deal. And Charlotte has been bad over the last few years, right? They were bad in 2023 after making the play-in. They were bad in 24. They were bad in 25. They drafted Brandon Miller. They drafted T.J. Salon. They drafted Con Knipple all on the top 10. And so far this year, this team, like they're a bottom 10 team in the NBA, but you can see the signs of progression with this roster. But the problem is Brandon Miller is already hurt. LaMelo's been hurt, and LaMelo has not been taking good shots. I don't know if it's the ankle issues dealing with him still, because it definitely well could be. They've had their fair share of injuries right now. And I'm watching at one point Miles Bridges, like number one option basketball in November. That is way too early. I mean, anytime's too early for that, but I can't watch that right now. Trey Mann has had his disappointing start this year, and LaMelo Ball had a triple-double against the Washington Wizards back on the 26th of October. The worst team in the NBA he got a triple-double against, which it was an electric performance. Since then, the Hornets, in the 6 games he's played in, 0-6. He's averaging 18 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, shooting 33% from the field, 22% from 3. A 38% effective field goal percentage. He's shooting 43% on twos, and he's turning the ball over around 4 times a night. The defense isn't great. And honestly, frankly, in those 6 games, Con Knipple has looked like the better Charlotte Hornet. Con Knipple looks like the best Charlotte Hornet in the 2026 NBA season. And I know there's a good player in LaMelo's game. When you kind of look at his volume, like you can live, it's like the Trae Young effect, right? Like if he's the only guy creating his own shot, now you have like hopefully Miller back, and Knipple can somewhat create his own shot, but definitely not as fluid as LaMelo. You can live with like 41% from the field, 37% from 3, in which what he did in the 2023 season. But if I'm going to get 40% from the field, 33% from 3 on like almost 10 threes a night, and the shot selection just being putrid, I can't live with that. I really can't. LaMelo has been really bad over the last few weeks in which he's played in. Just a 6-game stretch. We're just 9 games into the year, but he's shooting around 38% from the field. He's shooting 29.8% from 3 on 9 attempts a night. So really bad percentage on incredibly high volume, which is the worst thing you want right now. He's averaging around 7 rebounds, 9.5 assists, 21 points. Like fine counting numbers, 21, 10, and 7. Like that's good. But if you're not knocking down your shots, you're not going to be able to win games. And Charlotte has not been winning games as of late. They're 4-11, like I said. They've recently lost to the Indiana Pacers, arguably the worst team in the NBA. They lost to Toronto by 12, OKC by 13, Milwaukee in overtime by 13. You know how hard that is to lose in overtime by double digits, and they lost by Milwaukee a little bit before that. by 11. So I think LaMelo has been disappointing this year. I mean, he's still 24 years old. He just turned 24 a couple months ago. So he's going to be 24 throughout the season. I want to see Miller, LaMelo, and Con Knipple play a decent amount this year. Can I get like over 100 minutes between that trio this year? I hope so. And I'm hoping LaMelo Ball can continue to get better, because are we going to do the same old song and dance where this guy is going to be your most, I don't know, like your franchise player? Or are we going to think about maybe a future after LaMelo Ball if you can't keep doing the same old song and dance every single year, waiting for him to turn it around like he had that great season in 2022? He did beat out Anthony Edwards for Rookie of the Year in 2021, but it just feels like we've been going backwards since. So before we get back into today's episode of the Just Ballin' podcast, I want to give a word from today's sponsor, the Draftkings Sportsbook. You can stay in on the action with the Draftkings Sportsbook all season long in the NBA, and they are running a great promotion for new customers where if you bet $5, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins, plus 3 months of NBA League Pass on DraftKings. And there's different ways to get in on the action. And remember, new customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins, plus 3 months of NBA League Pass on them. And that's if you use my code JUSTBALLIN, JUSTBALLIN, all caps, no space in between the two. Thank you again for the DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring today's episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. All right, the second disappointing players I want to talk about, it's kind of like a duo in Memphis. I want to talk about Ja Morant, and I want to talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. I think both of these guys have been slightly disappointing this year for the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, Ja Morant is the franchise player. Ja Morant, like LaMelo Ball, was a good player in 2022 and 2023. He was the most improved winner in 2022. He averaged 27 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, helped the Memphis Grizzlies get the 2 seed, in which they lost in round number 2 to the Golden State Warriors. But hey, this team was young, up and coming. It was Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant. It felt like they were building something that had some other draft capital going forward. The Marcus Smart trade didn't work out. Ravia and Roddy didn't work out. And now here we are after them trading Desmond Bane. They've been bad this year. He averages 26 points in 2023. They lose to the Lakers in round number 1. 2024, unfortunately, Ja gets suspended for 25 games for what he did on Instagram Live. And then he has season-ending shoulder injury or a surgery. So he only played 9 games. Last year, Ja was banged up a ton. He was good-ish in the second half, but still only played 50 games out of 82. This year, Ja Morant is already dealing with a calf injury, a calf strain, which has been in the news a lot lately. Like Wemby's dealing with the calf strain. Anthony Davis is dealing with the calf strain. You feel a little bit less worried when it's a guard rather than a big, but you don't want that to lead to an Achilles issue. And so far this year, Ja Morant, 18 points per game. I'm pretty sure that would be the lowest of his career. Ja Morant averaged 17.8 as a rookie. He's averaging 17.9 right now. So right around his career low, 3.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 35% from the field, 16% on threes. Been a fine enough three-point shooter. He's hitting less than 1 3 a night on 5 attempts a game. It's not been good. He's shooting just 44% on twos. He's looking less explosive around the rim and sometimes just looks disengaged out there. And you can also say that him getting suspended by Tumasi Salo is a little bit disappointing for his effort against the LA Lakers and that first NBA Cup game on Halloween, and then basically just doesn't get along with the coaching staff after the game. Kind of weird remarks to the media, and he gets suspended against the Toronto Raptors. I mean, the Grizzlies were not going to be a good team this year, in my opinion, after trading away Desmond Bane. I actually think their best player this year has been Cedric Coward. Shout out to what Cedric Coward has done this year. But Ja Morant needs to be better if he's going to be the franchise superstar of this team. Ja Morant, like LaMelo Ball, is making a decent amount of money. $39 million this year, $42 million next year, and $44.8 million in 2028. So we'll see what ends up happening with Ja going forward. I would like to see him. I don't know. At least he's going to miss 2 weeks with the calf strain. Memphis is probably going to lose a lot of games. They're currently 25th right now in net rating. Their offense is terrible. And Jaren Jackson Jr., who got a very nice contract extension in the offseason after being a good defender last year and a fine enough offensive number 2, adjacent to Ja, along with Desmond Bane, got rewarded $35 million this year, $49 million next year, 50, then 52, then a $53 million player option in 2030. So he's basically owed, about $235 million over the next 5 years, including this year, which is a lot of money for somebody that's averaging 18 points, 5 rebounds, 47, 37, 80 splits. Fine enough, secondary offensive numbers, right? It's not too different scoring the ball wise than an Evan Mobley. but you're not going to get good rebounds out of Jaren Jackson Jr. You're getting good defense still. Like, even at his worst, he's still a good enough defender in this league, but he's not like 50 million a year worthy defense like we've seen in years past, where he won the 2023 DPOY. He was an elite defender last year, in my opinion. And obviously, just like the body language of these guys, like when you're not winning and things aren't going your way, it could be just on display a little bit more, and they're finding themselves in a little bit more of lopsided affairs, like where they're getting blown out a ton. Zach Edey was out. Now Zach Edey is back. Scottie Pippen Jr. and Ty Jerome, who was supposed to be like, or provide Memphis nice point guard depth behind Ja Morant, were hurt to start off the year. Now that Ja Morant is hurt, like Cam Spencer is kind of starting at the point guard spot for them going forward, or at least getting majority of the point guard minutes. So Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant this year, in my opinion, have been kind of slightly disappointing. I didn't think it was going to be good for them, but like, there's no excuse for them to not be like as competitive as Phoenix this year. Another team that I didn't really have that high of expectations going into this year. I think Derrick White has been a little bit disappointing for the Boston Celtics. Now, the role that Derrick White is in right now is asking him to do way more than maybe he ever imagined at the NBA level. Derrick White was this like scrappy underdog story, going to Colorado Springs and then going to Colorado and then becoming a late first round pick for the Spurs, was a good role player there, and then really elevated that role player status after getting traded to the Boston Celtics. Like, he was a fringe all-star the last 3 years in Boston, in my opinion, and being a top 10 defender, or at least guard defender in the sport. I think Jaylen Brown has stepped up as the number one option in the absence of Jason Tatum this year. Derrick White has struggled, though, with the increase in workload, in my opinion. He's averaging around 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists, shooting about 35% from the field, 30% from three, and 82% from the free throw line. It took Derrick White maybe until November 12th, which is kind of crazy, his 12th game of the year, to have an efficient game. Like, if you guys are watching on YouTube, I guess like maybe the November 5th game was not too bad, but there have been some bad shooting nights out of Derrick White. 35%, 27, 33, 35, 25, 37% from the field in October. And then he starts off November 18%, 33%, only takes 8 shots. So then he shoots 50% in a blowout win against Washington. But then they play better competition. Orlando, 43%. Orlando, 38%. Philly, 35%. All right, 54% against the blowout win against the Grizzlies. 41% against the Clippers. 40% against the Nets. Derrick White has not really been that efficient for this team this year. And for the amount of three-point volume he's taken a night, 30% is not good. He's taking about 9 threes a night. So when you're shooting 30%, when league average is as high as it's ever been, it's not what you need as like a number 2 option for the Boston Celtics, a team that's had like, it has a good net rating this year. Now they're beating up on a lot of like the Eastern Conference teams. They're kind of just going back and forth with each other. I do think that Jaylen Brown has like stepped up as that number 1 option this year. Peyton Pritchard has had more moments. Anthony Simons, Celtics fans may lose their mind with, but I think he's had more moments offensively than Derrick White this year. And Derrick White, I thought, was going to be an intriguing trade piece at the deadline. I don't think anything was ever going to transpire. I think Boston is all systems go for 2027 when Jason Tatum returns, but like 28 mil, 30 mil, 32 mil, 34 mil, it is a hefty contract going forward. White's numbers, I think, will materialize and look better over the course of the year. He's still figuring out this role. Sometimes settles for some bad threes, some bad twos, and he's going to look better too when Jason Tatum is back, and now he's like the third option. Like last year, Derrick White was what? I mean, at times he could have been the third option. At times he was the 5th or 6th option. When you have Drew Holiday, you have Kristaps Porzingis, you had Peyton Pritchard, who won 6 Men of the Year. Like, Derrick White got so many open looks, not just in the regular season, but in the playoffs against Orlando. He even had a ton of open looks against the Knicks in round number 2. But now he's like kind of the number 2 scoring option, or at least the number 2 like focus point of opposing defenses every single night. And if Jaylen Brown's not on the floor, he is the number 1. Maybe. So yeah, I think Derrick White has just been slightly disappointing because I love Derrick White. I had high expectations for Derrick White going into the year, and I think I've just been let down a little bit. So this one might be a little bit shocking, but I do think the former Boston Celtic Kristaps Porzingis has been a little bit disappointing this year for the Atlanta Hawks. He's played around 9 games this year, 17 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 43% from the field, 31% from 3. He's already dealing with a knee issue. I mean, are you surprised about Kristaps Porzingis having an injury concern this year? Trae Young, their best player, or at least the guy we thought was the best player going into the year, is currently dealing with a knee issue. 7-foot-tall Kristaps Porzingis is shooting 50% on 2s this year. And there was even like a report that Kristaps, who was like a win now get, like they may look to leverage him for a win now move. Kristaps this year at the rim is shooting around 54%. I don't know if that's what you would like for somebody at 7 foot tall. He's shooting, yeah, like I said, 50% on twos, a little bit better from mid-range, and he's shooting 31% on threes, which was kind of KP's calling card as a trade asset this offseason. Over the last 3 years in Washington and Boston, 38 from three, 37 from three, 41 from three, 31% from three now, already dealing with an injury. Doesn't look as like comfortable, I would say, in this Atlanta Hawks offense. And I was excited for the Trae Young Kristaps connection, and they're both hurt right now. I mean, Kristaps doesn't have as long of an injury as Trae Young, but I think at the moment, Kristaps does not look like the best big man on this team. That goes to Onyeka Okongwu so far this year for the Atlanta Hawks, and KP hasn't played in about a week for Atlanta. So I think Okongwu stepped up, and this team has also been playing some elite basketball in the absence of Kristaps Porzingis and Trae Young. I didn't want to throw Trae Young in here. Trae Young always has slow starts to the year, and he got hurt like so early. But I would say that Kristaps Porzingis has been kind of slightly disappointing so far this year for the Atlanta Hawks. I don't know why I talked myself into it yet again, but I did for Zion Williamson. Oh man, I just watched him in the preseason. He looked skinny. He looked bouncy. He looked active. He looked motivated, and we're at the same old thing that's been in years past. Hamstring issues, injury concerns every single night. He's already missed he's played 6 games. He's missed 9 games this year. They already got their head coach fired. He did just recently come back against the Denver Nuggets. Didn't look good in that game, I would say. Like, Derrick Queen looked a lot better. Trey Murphy looked better. Zion this year is shooting 48% on twos. 48% on twos. That is terrible. Like, Zion is usually around 57 to 61%, and he's about 10% worse than that right now. If you look at the amount of his field goal attempts, kind of like by that distance, he hasn't attempted a single three this year. 53% of his shots come like at the rim. Right outside the rim, it's about 40% of his shots, and he's shooting just 58% at the rim, 36% slightly behind the rim between 3 to 10 feet, according to Basketball Reference. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's the same thing when I was talking about it with LaMelo Ball before. Are we going to do the same old song and dance every year? I think Charlotte would be a little bit more patient than Zion because, I don't know. I mean, they don't have that injury clause in the contract like Zion does in New Orleans. I think Charlotte is just wanting to see what they can get out of Miller and LaMelo at the same time. And LaMelo was also drafted a year later than Zion Williamson. And LaMelo just kind of had like these ankle issues. Zion like got suspended last year for missing like a team flight. Like, so there's been some off the court things with Zion, some other outside distractions that we won't get into, but he's owed $39 million this year, $42 million next year, which they can cut, and $44 million in 2028. I just think like Zion last year when he was healthy, in the freaking 30 games he played last year when he was healthy, he looked like a top 20 guy in the sport. Like, he looked so dominant down low, and just like the Zion that we thought he could be coming out of Duke, that we thought could like take the league by storm in 2021, or when he rebounded in 2024 when he played 70 games. It's just upsetting because like this was supposed to be the next face of the league. I think for New Orleans, it's a little bit disappointing as well. No first round pick this year. I mean, the stadium looked empty against OKC recently. I'm excited about the rookies and the watch Fears and Queen throughout the course of the year. I think Trey Murphy, he's been playing well as of late, Zion, like, I'm still so excited to watch Zion, but I think it's just a weird fit right now. They've kind of stayed away a little bit from like point Zion as of late. And I mean, it's such a small sample size this year. It's only 6 games. It's just like, I feel like we're heading down a path where Joe Dumars didn't draft Zion. He didn't try to develop Zion. He was not scared to trade away his first round pick when they were projected to win around like 30 games. Will he be scared to trade away Zion? Does Zion even have any value? I don't know. The fact that we're even having these conversations is a little bit disappointing. And then there's just like some former like recent draft guys that I kind of thought I could get a little bit more out of this year. Zachary Reese-Shea has been a little bit better as of late from the 2024 draft. So this is going to be kind of like rapid fire from these guys. T-John Salon already kind of playing in the G League and struggling to find playing time for what I talked about before with Charlotte, like a bottom 10 team in the NBA. I'm a little upset about Rob Dillingham. I thought he was going to carve out a nice role in Minnesota. I thought it was a good spot for him going forward, but he really struggles finishing around the rim. He looks noticeably small out there. His jumper just feels broken. It looks so smooth last year. It just doesn't feel as fluid as it did at Kentucky or right now, last year, I should say. Even it was a small sample size last year. He didn't look like all that polished in the summer league either. I think he's been slightly disappointing. I mean, it's not Devin Carter's fault, but I think he's been slightly disappointing this year for the Sacramento Kings, the fact that he's not really getting playing time. So he's from the 2024 draft class. I mean, I could talk about a ton of Sacramento Kings where like Precious Achiuwa was like the most impactful King in their blowout loss to the OKC Thunder last night. And Domantas Sabonis has been injured at times this year. Like, he's had a good game. It was recently. It was against, I think, Minnesota, in which they lost by 14. Like, he's not really playing winning basketball for this team, and maybe that's something we've known in years past, but I do think Sabonis has been a little bit of a letdown this year for the Sacramento Kings. So yeah, some lottery picks. Cody Williams as well, struggling to play. He had like a cup of coffee against the Lakers, like showed a little bit of scoring in that game, but Cody Williams barely cracking the rotation. In year number 2, as the 10th overall pick last year, and he's a little bit, I think, older than Salon, so I would like to see him involved a little bit more going forward. I should talk about Jarris Walker a little bit, who's struggling to really back down smaller guys. This was a chance for him to showcase with a career high in playing time and field goals attempt by a decent margin. He's doubling his minutes per game. He's doubling his shots. He's shooting 30% from the field and 28% from 3. He's shooting just 32% on 2s. I would like to see Jarris Walker be a little bit better, but that's not been the story this year for the Indiana Pacers, unfortunately. And I think he's probably been like maybe the most disappointing player from that 2023 draft class. And I'm watching Kevin Love get more playing time this year over Taylor Hendricks. I don't know why. I know Hendricks hasn't been great since he's been out there, and Utah's been a little bit more competitive maybe than they thought because Keontae George is taking a leap. Ace Bailey looks the part. Lauri Markkanen is basically averaging 30 points per game, but Taylor Hendricks, I think it's kind of disappointing. I know he had that gruesome injury last year. Hopefully he plays more over the course of the year, but like, can we not throw Taylor Hendricks at the 5 than Jusuf Nurkic, who is awful? Like, I know Nurkic is at least a competent, like, rebounder in a way and is a veteran, like, screen setter, but I'd rather just see Taylor Hendricks out there at the 5 spot because he looks so promising in March of 2024, and it really sucks he suffered that gruesome leg injury in game 3 last year. I think it was against the Dallas Mavericks. So I'd like to see more playing time out of Taylor Hendricks going forward. And that is going to be for me. Hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast. Sorry about this one being a little bit shorter today. I am going away this weekend, so I didn't really have that much time to make a longer episode, so I do apologize. Either way, though, I hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to drop a thumbs up on YouTube if you did. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. There could be some changes to the pod coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. Hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.